Welcome to another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum, where all voices matter. It's time to check in with our monthly markets expert, Mr. Tom Caldwell. He is the chairman of Caldwell Securities Ltd. In Toronto, and there is lots to talk about as our economic position comes with a few storm clouds these days. Tom, welcome back.
Thank you, Tony. I question that word expert. Expert's a word that's fallen into disrepute during the COVID period, I'm afraid. But anyway, I do my best.
You're doing very well. I used to say the definition of the expert is the guy from out of town, so it's almost the same thing. Before we get on to what we wanted to talk about, we also wanted to talk about what you sponsored last week, which was Remembrance Week throughout Canada, across Canada, remembering those who paid a great sacrifices, sometimes the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our freedoms. Maybe talk a little bit about what you were doing then.
Well, it was quite interesting. My brother and I were chatting about, our usual ad, or should I say remembrance in the paper, lest we forget. And Jim had pointed out to me, lest we forget doesn't mean anything to younger people anymore because they don't even know what they're supposed to remember. And so we sort of thought about this and came up with a different message this year. So we took a full page in the National Post today and a full page in the Globe tomorrow. And basically what it is a flag of Canada at full staff, because we got lots to be proud of in Canada. And we wanted to point that out. It's pride, how we feel about ourselves. And underneath that, there's sort of a slash with poppies and for Canada. These young men and women died for Canada. And then underneath that, there's another phrase that said, they stood against evil and made us proud. And that's what young people don't quite get, that a volunteer army, people volunteering, stood against evil. This was pure, uncut evil that we confronted in World War II. We never invaded a country to take it over. We only sent troops, fought and died for what we believed was right and for other people's rights. So I thought it would be very good for young people to remember the simple fact that we fought against evil. And that's the thing to keep in mind. And have, what kind of evil is that? Because they don't even know what a war was about. But it was uncut evil we were confronted with.
Well, I want to thank you for doing that, and your brother as well. And hopefully it made an impact when that was published in the newspapers. So thanks for doing that.
I hope so.
I'm going to have to return to more mundane topics and talk a little bit about what happened last week with the Bank of Canada's Governor Tiff Clement, who recently stated that inflation is quite transitory, but not short-lived, he said. So first of all, is he right about that?
Well, on the other hand, he might be right. It's like an economist giving you two opinions. Well, it could be here, but it's going to be a little bit longer. And it is kind of government doublespeak. My sense is the inflation numbers, which are very high just recently, quite high in the U.S., is transitory to some degree, in that we have supply constraints, we have costs being pushed up, particularly in the energy area, because those groceries, they arrive by truck. Mm-hmm. We also have seen the results of a guaranteed income stream. That is, the COVID assistance programs have pulled people out of the workforce. So in actual fact, many organizations don't have the workers, whether it be restaurants, whether it be anything you want at stores, or even manufacturing. So supply has been constrained. There is a lot of pent-up spending that people have not gone out and bought stuff during COVID. So there's money or savings accumulated. So the pressures are there. I think it's too early to prognosticate, if I might use that phrase, on which way it's going to go. My sense is that we're going to see a period of inflation here for the obvious reasons. And by the way, those supply constraints, energy costs, that's all government inspired. They didn't happen out of the blue or bad karma. They happened because that was created. So my sense is you may see an easing off of this. I don't know whether, like inflation, you build in inflationary expectations.
Right.
You expect prices to go up. But I think it'll be a little while, and it'll probably ease off to some degree as we get into next year. How far into next year? I can't say. And I don't think TIFF can either.
Yeah. Well, certainly it did excite a lot of commentary. And you're right. We are kind of predicting into the future, which is a bit of a mug's game. But people are going to make decisions based on their expectations too. So it's an important conversation to have. We're going to continue the conversation with Tom Caldwell after the break. Lots of matters still to discuss. Please stay with us. And we're back here at Boom and Bust. I'm here with Tom Caldwell. He is chairman of Caldwell Securities Ltd. in Toronto. Tom, obviously, I guess just wrapping up is the COP26 Climate Change Summit in Glasgow, Scotland. Prime Minister Trudeau, I guess at the outset of this conference, announced a hard cap on oil and gas production, in terms of emissions anyway, in the future. Tell us your thoughts about this when you heard it. What does this mean for Canadians?
Well, frankly, I didn't listen to it because I don't think what he says really has much weight in any area. Remember, the energy sector is one of Canada's biggest foreign exchange generators. Our dollar is seen as a petrol currency. So he has to tread pretty gingerly about this. It's quite interesting to see, but everybody has these hard caps. I love the China one, though. That's the best because they're talking about 2060. Yeah. So, we're all going to be gone by then. So it's great. You get to fly to these conferences in your private jets, spew carbon all over the countryside and sit down and say how other people should stop using the lawnmowers. But at any rate, my basic point is you can have all these hard caps you want. But if you're talking 20 or 30 year out goals, whether you're prime minister or heaven knows what, it doesn't mean anything. Yes, the concern is we have to maybe address climate change, but it's become such a religion now that we still you can't have a discussion on this. If you're an academic and you come up with different scientific data, you're going to lose your job. So it really it's like a steamroller now. I guess if I had to look with the mind of experience, that is being old, I think a lot of this enthusiasm may abate a little bit in the future. And some of these situations have a tendency to self-correct, i.e. climate change. There is a cyclicality to it. Remember, if it wasn't for climate change, you and I would be sitting under a mile of ice right now.
Right.
And so my point here is it's good to have these goals, and it's good to get out, as Davy Crockett said, speechifying, and goals of 20 and 30 years out mean absolutely nothing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there was a lot of hot air at the climate change conference. But it seems like, and you're an observer of corporate Canada and corporate activities, a lot of corporations are signing on to these environmental goals these days too, right?
You have to sign on to whatever the politically correct mantra of the day is. If you're a major corporation, you've got to give it at a minimum lip service and be seen as actually doing something. And it is absolutely true. We got to clean up this world. But if I had to sit down and somebody asked me what my goals, I think we should be dealing with hunger, poverty, homelessness. Those are things that we can deal with in the now. And that means create opportunities for growth and jobs. So this ethereal goal is fine, but we should look at the ones that are closer to home that make a real difference in people's lives now. But corporations have to do this. And there's all these pressures on corporations, ESG, that is environmental, social, government ones. That's the next big wave to come.
Right.
We are in a judgment, regulatory strangulation period, it seems to me. And whether that abates or eases off, that's another question.
Yeah, because it's a combination of what maybe shareholders demand, what their own employees demand, especially Generation Z employees, and also what government is putting pressure on corporations as well, right?
But I run several public companies and one public corporation. The demands of my shareholders: run a profitable, good business, period. And I look at our firm here, we've never had diversity constraints. We hired the best people we could. And I think our firm is one of the most diverse in the securities industry because we hire the right people, or the best people we can. And I think we got to get away from this pressure of how to run your business. And I only have one master in a public company. Those are my shareholders. And I got to do business in conjunction with the regulatory environment as it exists. But my goal is clear as to who I'm responsible to, who I answer to. If I'm running an airline and say, listen, I have all kinds of great people. They're not good people, but we meet all these government guidelines. I don't want to get on an airplane like that.
Right, right. The markets, we've got about 30 seconds left, and we might have to take this after the break as well, but markets are pretty stable right now, is that right?
Well, we're having some down days on these inflation numbers right now. So we're having some volatility. I think we're going to have volatility for a little while, something that scares you. The market itself, that is what I call the real market, real companies that do real things. It's not overpriced. Where we have the fluff, I think, is in a lot of the very high tech or the meme stocks, the Teslas of the world. You have IPOs coming out raising $18 billion with an applied market cap of $78 billion on a company that only manufactured one truck. I mean, this is insanity.
And welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Tom Caldwell, chairman of Caldwell Securities Ltd. in Toronto. Tom, I got to ask this question. I hope this isn't too far out of left field for you, but what do you make of the battle over the control of Rogers and I guess the apparent victory for Edward Rogers? Have you been following that at all?
Yes, I have. Edward was my neighbor for a while in Forest Hill, an interesting neighbor. I knew his father, Ted, not well, but casually. You know, it's what's the German word, Schadenfreude, where people enjoy other people's discomfort. Yeah. I felt badly for everybody. And, Edward really has a tough job. Following Ted Rogers, you got to be like King Kong to even come close to the mark. And he's always been kind of discounted of, oh, he's all right, but he's not really the guy. And that's a terrible way to grow up and have your life, and living in the shadow of Ted. And again, having your mother and sisters turn on you. Well, listen, all families are dysfunctional anyway, so they're not unique. They're like all the rest of our families. But I'm not saying I'm not particularly a fan of Edwards, but I was kind of happy to see him get through this and win in the deal. So he has a chance to do something, to prove himself, to put his mark on the company, and I would say good for him, and I wish him well at doing that. There's all kinds of people that glob on to all this stuff. Oh, we can't have companies controlled with voting, non-voting. Well, if we didn't have that, Canadian Tire would be an American company, and Rogers would have been long gone. So unfortunately, we're a small capital market, an extra big one. So that structure does make sense in Canada. But as far as Edward goes, I wish him well. I'm glad he came out of it all right. I hope somehow in their family they get a chance to patch up stuff. But listen, my family's Irish, so I know what dysfunctional looks like.
Okay, fair point. Yeah, they're just living it obviously on the front pages, but yeah, it's not unusual. Let's put it that way. Hey, I'm going to go back to oil just for a second because I noted that President Biden, I guess in and around the time of the COP26 conference, was facing soaring gasoline prices in the U.S. and begging OPEC for more oil production. And meanwhile, we're here in Canada, and for some reason they turned their back on Alberta and our oil production. What do you make of that?
Well, it clearly illustrates he doesn't know what he's doing, and the U.S. administration doesn't know what they're doing. This oil price increase, gasoline, that's their baby doll. They created that. I mean, wouldn't it be better if they had a Keystone XL pipeline just flowing Canadian oil into that market? All the other pipelines they've delayed and did these studies on. We are not going to be driving around with windmills on our cars, solar panels, for quite a period of time. But they created this, and it's completely ironic that he's begging the Saudis to increase production. Like it or not, I spent a lot of time in the Middle East. The Saudis pretend to be America's friend. They're not. And so as far as I'm concerned, it's the stuff of humor and irony. It's the ultimate irony that they cut off friendly oil from their greatest ally with an energy sharing agreement and pipelines. Oh, we don't want that. Oh my God, we seem to have a shortage. I mean, the irony is incredible.
Yeah, he's not, obviously, everybody's watching the election results in the state of Virginia a few days ago, and it looks like President Biden's own popularity numbers are not what they used to be. So do you think, is that the issue? Is he starting to pay a price in terms of the economic issues that are facing America right now?
Well, I think he was a compromise candidate. Trump was elected to really shake government up, and he could have and should have and might have done it, but his personal foibles were just too deep, and it just created great turmoil. And he had some issues. And then the Democrats, their quote progressive, which is actually regressive wing, was so insane they had to get somebody who's semi-normal, and Biden, who clearly is, he's not up to snuff, and there's no ifs and buts about that. But he was a good compromise to put in for the time being. The challenge is, heaven forbid anything happens to him. You got Kamala Harris,
Right.
So I think really everybody's saying, what have we done? And the pendulum in America tends to renew itself. So my sense is the pendulum will swing back toward a more centrist right or centrist left type parties type of thing. Because everybody said, what have we done?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Republicans are going to win. Now, mind you, if they decide they're going to go with Trump, and the whole game is wide open again. I don't know what's going to happen then. So I think they're going to opt for semi-normal, period.
Well, one can only hope. We're going to take a brief break, and then we'll return with our guest, Tom Caldwell. Please stay with us. And welcome back to Boom or Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Tom Caldwell. He's chairman of Caldwell Securities in Toronto. Tom, we're just talking about the U.S., and let's talk about the U.S. economy for a second. We're just about in a few days to head into American Thanksgiving and then Black Friday, the huge retail bonanza that happens stateside. Do you see the U.S. economy as strong going into Black Friday?
Yes, I don't know that it'll show necessarily up in retail, but there's a lot of spending that wants to get done out there. The challenge will be, are the products going to be there? So you're going to have these inflationary pressures. It's going to be hard to get the toys or whatever else you want to get, but the economy underpinning it is very, very strong. And I think I mentioned to you a couple of programs ago that there's an interesting thing going on with the supply chain business where it's so long. Corporations are going to move to shrink their supply chains. So I think you're going to see significant capital spending in America to build plants, to build equipment in America, so you don't have to go halfway around the world to get your products. And with automation, robotics, artificial intelligence, labor costs are not the same issue that they were 20 years ago. So I think there's a lot of stuff coming, whether it comes by Black Friday or not, that's going to underpin a fairly strong economy for quite a period of time.
Yeah, I think you've just raised a good point that I do see the same trend, of course, where onshoring or reshoring, getting those supply chains closer to the North American markets. But that doesn't necessarily mean a jobs bonanza, because a lot of this will be driven by robotics, AI, the new technologies. That's what you're seeing as well?
Yes, but remember, there's also this other constraint that folks are not necessarily wanting to go back to work. I mean, people say, oh, you can't live on this assistance of $2,000 a month. Well, wait a second. If you got 4 or 5 people in the house, you can live on it. And if you subsidize non-working, you're going to get more non-working. So there's a challenge here. I mean, companies like Linamar, in Guelph, they have trouble getting employees. They're offering good salaries, great jobs, skill training, can't get enough people. And that's happening right across the country. So that is the constraint. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. But the jobs are available, they're coming if people want them. And that's going to be up in the air. We'll see how that plays out.
I noticed there was a recent opinion poll in Canada indicating that something like 60% or 2/3 of Canadians want to see an end to all of these programs that are subsidizing or replacing wages. So maybe people are waking up to the fact that it's not good for economics, and it's not good policy for people either.
Absolutely, and it's vote buying with our children's financial well-being in the future. They're creating monster debts by just throwing money around the place. But I don't think our government in Ottawa really understands the elements of how an economy works, how you build an economy, or even how people react.
We've got just over a minute left. I'm just going to throw another headline at you. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board is part of a team buying cybersecurity giant McAfee. I noticed that the headline. That's kind of interesting. Do you see that this cybersecurity investment as a trend?
Cybersecurity is going to be a fact of life forever because you have very sophisticated amateur actors, you have professional actors, you have government actors in this. I mean, in China, you have skyscrapers jammed with programmers seeing what they can hack into. It's going to be a fact of life forever.
Well, on that note, it's a somber note, but it's probably a very accurate note at the same time. We might have to return to that topic because it is a big topic. I don't think I gave it justice by throwing that at you in the last minute. But thanks again for joining us, Tom Caldwell, Chairman of Caldwell Securities. It's always great to have you on the program.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Again, that was Tom Caldwell. He's the chairman of Caldwell Securities Ltd. In Toronto, talking about inflation, talking about COP26 and some of the climate change agendas, how that impacts on Canada, talking a little bit about Edward Rogers and the fight for over control of an iconic Canadian company. Lots to talk about, as always, in the Canadian economy, and it's always great to have you along with it, with us. Thanks for joining us today.